Hello world, my name is Nick360 and welcome back to the Complete Beginner's Guide to Prison Architect. In the last episode we covered the very basics of prisoners' needs. In this episode we're going to go a little further in depth into that topic. Now as you can see right here, there was a big fight. And fights are going to happen more often depending on how you satisfy the prisoner's needs. So in general, if the prisoners are very unhappy, they're going to get in fights all the time. And if they are happy, they're going to get into fights rarely. As we talked about in the last episode, there are different ways to satisfy the different needs. For example, we built these telephones here so that they could satisfy the family need, but there's other needs as well. So today's episode, we're going to go through all the needs and talk about what things you can do. We're not going to go into depth, we're just going to summarize what are the things you need to do in order to satisfy each of these needs. So the first two needs on the list is bladder and bowels, and those are satisfied by having toilets in your prison. Right now, every cell has a toilet in it, so it's pretty easy to satisfy that need. Sleep is very self-explanatory, they just need to sleep, and in order to satisfy that need, each prisoner needs a bed. Food is a very important need. In order to satisfy that need, you need to make sure you have a working kitchen and canteen. The safety need is how safe each prisoner feels in the prison. So if fights are breaking out very frequently in your prison, and a lot of your prisoners have access to weapons, then the safety need will go up. So in order to satisfy the safety need, you need to make sure you have a functioning prison that doesn't have a lot of fights going on. Next on the list is hygiene, and hygiene is how clean the prisoners are physically. So in other words, if they have a shower, you'll satisfy the hygiene need. Exercise. Each prisoner has a desire to get exercise, and they feel good when they exercise. That's a really easy one to satisfy. We can go into our yard here, go into objects, and weights bench. And we can just put in a couple of weights bench. I'm going to move this out of the way. I'll put in about 8 of them to start off with, and just put in more as you need them. Once these are built, the prisoners will be able to exercise during free time or during yard time, and the exercise need will be met. Next is family, and there's a lot of different ways to satisfy the family need, but any way that they can communicate with the outside world will satisfy the family need. Next is recreation. Recreation is anything the prisoners can do to relax and unwind. We're going to cover that one in depth in the next episode. Comfort is resting. Comfort is rest but not sleep, so aka sitting down, because prisoners who can't sit down will have their legs really restless, and so comfort is basically being able to sit or lie down. I wouldn't worry about this too much because prisoners will be able to sit down during meal times on the benches in the canteen. That one's pretty easy to take care of, but if you see that need getting out of control, just put a couple benches scattered around your prison and they'll sit down when they need to and they'll feel more comfortable. Environment is how clean the prison is itself. So if we look over here, everything's really dirty. The showers are dirty, the holding cell's dirty, there's plants growing everywhere. This is an ugly looking prison. If you're following the tutorial from the beginning, we don't have any way to satisfy the environment need right now. Basically, we need to hire janitors and gardeners. Warmth. Warmth is a relatively new need. Warmth is the desire to stay warm. So at night, it gets really cold throughout the prison. And so if the prisoners are cold for a long time, their warmth need will go up. They desire warmth. That's another easy fix. You can just go to objects, go to radiator. Go to radiator. Just put a radiator kind of in the middle of the cells. So this one right there, one right there. Now all of these cells and all of these cells will stay pretty warm throughout the night. Privacy. Privacy is pretty self-explanatory. Prisoners like to be alone from time to time. And so all you have to do to satisfy that need is each prisoner having their own cell will satisfy the privacy need. Also, not having guards everywhere all the time will help satisfy privacy need. So these cells right here that I have to the left, it's one prisoner to a cell, so each prisoner is really private. Right here, it's 4 prisoners to the... Over here, it's 4 prisoners to a dormitory. That's not very private. If we assign guards to be in the dormitory during night or during the day, that would be even less private. Freedom. Freedom basically means going around and doing anything that isn't just being locked in a single room. So, if you have free time, that will help satisfy the freedom need. Clothing. Clothing just means having clean clothes. You just need to build a laundry room. If you're following this tutorial from the beginning, we do not have the capacity to do that right now. So that's an important thing to look forward to in the future. Drugs. Drugs is the desire to consume drugs. Likewise, alcohol is the desire to consume alcohol. You don't want prisoners to be consuming drugs and alcohol, but they'll want to anyway. This is kind of a really annoying need because you're not supposed to satisfy this need. So you're trying to just ignore drugs and alcohol. You almost want this need to be as high as possible. That shows how good you are at keeping drugs and alcohol out of your prison, which the prisoners are not supposed to have. The more drugs and alcohol they have, the harder it is to control the prisoners, and the more likely you get into fights and things that they're not supposed to be doing. Spirituality. Some prisoners are religious, and they want to practice their religion. And all you need to do to satisfy the spiritual need is to have a chapel, which we do not have access to if you're following the tutorial from the beginning. So that's, again, another thing to look forward to in the future. And finally, our last need is literacy. That is, some prisoners have a desire to read. In order to satisfy that, you're going to need to build a library. And again, finally, if you're following this tutorial from the beginning, we do not have access to a library at this moment in time, so that's yet another thing to look forward to in the future. So that's the things you should be looking out for in satisfying needs. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!